Hello everyone, my name is Michael and welcome back to Sovereign Gaming. So we are back here in Sim City and we are still in the port neighborhood. But the good news here is that we are finishing it up to a point where I think that we can actually move on and actually focus in on doing some detailing around Old Town. So that's the good news here, is that we are finally transitioning from that port into a new neighborhood. But we just have to kind of get through things here. So yeah, I do some experimenting within this episode with some ground textures and all that, so we actually get to finally see some different colors on our screens, which is a good thing. It's just that this rail yard, this pocket track and all that, it has been such like an extensive piece of infrastructure within the SimCity build that I wanted to convey that it really demanded a lot of focus within this area. And so, it has been an area that actually will inform the rest of the structure for the rest of the SimCity region, to be quite honest with you. We needed to have that opening in the water for a deep sea port. Whether or not that's like an ocean or not is yet to be determined. I haven't made a decision on that one quite yet, but anyways, so yeah, that has been the port and the shipyards and Old Town has been a very substantial part of the SimCity build, as it should. It's the original landing, the original settlement of the SimCity area that I wanted to convey, and so having it hold as much influence as it does makes sense in the lore, and it also makes sense for the build as well. As you can probably tell on screen right now, the second most used object in the build so far is definitely going to be that chain link fence. This is funny. It turns out to be an object that I continue to use throughout the build. So even when I move on, like beyond the Old Town and into some of the downtown core, I continue to use this chain link fence. And the purpose of that is really to convey a barrier, to convey a limit, a security limit, because it wouldn't make sense to have the railroads just kind of face on to the road directly. I imagine that there would be city bylaws to protect that rail, to create a barrier of that rail between the rail and the road so that people wouldn't wander on aimlessly. Speaking of which, when it comes to this pocket rail, it's probably going to be flashing a little bit, and unfortunately there's nothing I can really do about the flashing. It's just something that we're all going to have to accept. It's just a gameplay limit there. There was really no graceful way to kind of create a connecting railroad into a pocket rail like we see here. And it's unfortunate, but it's also something that I decided to just kind of go with as well. I know that there are worlds out there. I believe there's one called Burrowsburg. It's a really extensive, detailed build that is based on Brooklyn, New York, like detailed to an insane amount. And they were even able to get like some sort of a subway train going, like driving through it and all that. And I don't know how they actually managed to do that. It would be something that I would include in this build if it was something that I can easily access and gracefully place, but unfortunately that's just not the case for us. That's not the case for me, at least. But if you know of a way to actually get that in the game, then drop a comment and I'll certainly look into it. I'll certainly see if there's a possibility to get that done. Speaking of which, about the world, about the SimCity build that I'm doing here, nothing is ever final. And that is something that I really wanted to point out here, is that I have no problem going back to a region at a later point in time when I've either gotten better at the game or if there's a detail that I really wanted to put in. So yeah, there's nothing wrong with that, nothing wrong with this being an evolving project, and that's kind of how I wanted it to grow. There will be some avenues that I fill out with concrete sidewalk where I don't mind Sims walking along. Now, I don't think that Sims really are programmed to walk along in the middle of these avenues, or at least they probably choose a pathing that makes more sense, likely driving, because there's really nothing to see or do on these avenues, but I digress. So yeah, these avenues, some will be filled with sidewalk, concrete, some will not. The idea here is that for those that are not filled with sidewalk concrete, I'll likely just be placing some trees in them. Whereas the ones that do have sidewalk concrete, I might be placing like planters, or in this case, what I ended up doing, and I'm not sure if it'll be shown in this episode, but what I ended up doing with the sidewalk concrete is I ended up just placing some larger lights in the middle of it, like specifically in the port area, because it didn't feel right to have planters or something of the sort within the middle there without it kind of detracting from the industrial look. So that's why I just kind of left it up to the lights. And once I get a chance to actually make the lights orange colored or whatnot, that will help to really make the area come alive at night and really convey that industrial feel at night. So yeah, that's what a lot of these will do. And then the avenues here, and like with decorating the middle of the avenues, I use it as another signal for players and for myself, I'm going to be quite honest, to really differentiate between the Old Town neighborhood and also the industrial port. I think I mentioned that before, but I just kind of wanted to reiterate it again, as that is a style choice that I'm using to help differentiate between the two, while also kind of keeping it similar and consistent throughout the city. So this isn't the only place where I actually use avenues to communicate a different area. As you can see, I'm using these retaining walls to also communicate different levels of height as well. I know I've probably overspoken about this, but I really just wanted to point out that I find these retaining walls so handy for an abrupt change in height of the land. So when it comes to like the different Old Town lots, I really wanted something that was slightly smaller than the 50 by 50 that I was doing for the inner city grid. I wanted something slightly smaller and also a little bit wider as well. I imagine that Old Town is going to be have lots that are inspired by the French Quarter of the French Quarter of New Orleans in Louisiana. And so yeah, I allowed the retaining wall here to help depict what size the lots actually should be. And I also wanted to give myself enough room to actually create something that is going to be a lot more intriguing and unique to the Old Town area. And so having these lots back up against a retaining wall that is separating it from a higher level road is certainly something that is unique, and I think that it would add a lot of visual intrigue to the area. And there aren't a whole lot of Old Town lots here, and a big part of the reason why is because that rail yard takes up so much room, but that's okay for me personally, because I wasn't going to be doing a whole lot of building within Old Town. Like there's just going to be a set of 4 buildings really, and then from there, like across 2 blocks, and then from there northwards, I'm going to be adding in the seasonal lot that came with seasons. I haven't a whole idea for that, but we'll have to get to the lot build episode to really explore that. And then also the roller coaster lot that came with the Roaring Heights download from the Sims 3 store. So those is some of the plans for what's to come for the actual lots that are going into the Old Town area. I end off this episode with doing just a little bit of vegetation within the rail yard itself, just kind of giving it some weeds and overgrown vegetation and whatnot. I'm very much on the fence of putting in the abandoned train asset into there, because the idea with this rail yard was that it was a repurposed freight line into a passenger rail line, and we are going to have it emerge at another point in the city, and that is actually coming up, but I won't spoil too much because I honestly don't know how far out it is in terms of episodes. So yeah, with that said, I just wanted to keep the rail yard relatively clean, but I'm always open to suggestions on that kind of thing. And even though I just put in some like overgrown brambles, I think they were called, into the lot, it was certainly something that I felt helped to make it come alive just a little bit more. I didn't want to overdo it, but I also just wanted to add just a little bit of visual intrigue in there where it would make sense for an active rail yard to have, really. So yeah, that about does it for the rest of the port and industrial shipyard area of the SimCity build. We are now well into the Old Town area, and so that's really where the next episodes are really going to focus on. And the next episode that is coming up is going to be that film studio build. Only I don't complete it because of the Sims 3 store purchases that have prevented me from going back into the editing game mode, which is wonderful. So I will certainly talk to you guys then. And if you've been enjoying this SimCity build with Create a World and with myself, then feel free to like and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Thank you again, and I hope you have yourself a wonderful day.